a little bit of the action. I have one of the first endorsement on the back of the paper. If you got the paper wrapper that goes around the hardcover book, on the back of the paper wrapper, there's 4 endorsements or discussions by short comments by people. Mine is the first. I was probably the first person to do what might be called a physics test of his descriptions of what happened.
Yeah,
at his cabin, I was reading through to see exactly when it happened. I remember he had in his book a story about a friend of his friend and a friend's wife or girlfriend stayed at his cabin, and they stayed in one of the bedrooms on the first floor. Whitley and his wife were upstairs in the loft part of the bedroom of the house, and I forget where his son, I think, had another bedroom. But anyway, the reason that this is important is there was one night, I was trying to find out if it was sometime in 1980, let's see, 86, it was 85 when his first event, the first thing that he became aware of occurred, December 85. I think it was half a year or so later, his friend and the friend's girlfriend stayed overnight at the cabin, and they stayed in this bedroom, which was on one side of the house, and in a bed. They were in a room that might have been, let's say, 10 feet wide by 15 feet long or something like that. The head of the bed was against the wall farthest from the outer wall. The farthest wall into the building, and there was only a window, an ordinary window, at the wall. So if you're lying in the bed and you are propped up on a pillow or something, you're looking straight ahead, right out this window, and outside the window was the trunks of trees. There was an upward sloping hillside with numerous trees and no grass. So the point is, it was hardly reflective. Well, his friend, one of these nights, whatever night it was, something had happened to Whitley. His friend said he woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. He knew what time it was because he looked at his watch, and he could read his watch by the light coming in the window. And I spent the night in the same bedroom as a test to see how bright it could be in there. I was in there lying on the bed, and he turned on what might be called porch lights. They didn't provide any light at all to speak of in the bedroom, and it was nothing but dirt and tree trunks as reflectors. It was his impression that some extremely bright object had hovered over the top of his cabin, and my guess was that somehow light had gotten in through the window. There was enough light so that the guy could read his watch. When I was in there, it was perfectly black, even if he turned the porch lights on. So it wasn't a case of porch lights being on and supplying enough light for the guy to read his watch. There must have been a huge, absolutely fabulously huge amount of light pouring down onto the bases of the trees and the dirt and reflecting inwards through the window to be able to provide enough light so that he could read his watch at 4 o'clock in the morning. So that was sort of a physics experiment that I did, and complemented his story that there was something extremely weird that happened with this big bright light over his house, over his cabin.
Yeah, he's had a lot of weird encounters at that cabin, too. You know, his new book has just been released, A New World. And I
heard him discussing it on Coast to Coast last night.
Yeah, I just started reading a little bit today. I only got through maybe about 10 pages, but I think his feelings of these abductors has changed to the point where, he was scared of them at the start for quite a few years, actually. And from what I'm gathering in his book now is that he's learned to basically adapt to them And after he's adapted to them and not fight them, they seem to be more friendlier. And that's what I'm gathering so far in the book. So that's going to be a good read tonight.
He seems to have waxed cold and hot over the years with all the books that he's published on the same subject and sort of related subjects. He always thinks it's weird, it's real. But on the other hand, as he was saying last night on Coast to Coast, he really has no hard evidence, no piece of something, nothing that was bent or damaged or marked somehow by supposedly by these creatures. It's sort of an extremely ambiguous way to live. I wrote a book called Abduction in My Family, which is available on Amazon, in which it's a new form of literature in which a real fact book is built into a novel. The point about the novel is to illustrate the type of things that people talk about when they've been abducted. And there's this main thread of the novel is discovering this abduction that occurred. A scientific type guy who's completely skeptical about the subject gets confronted with stories and starts to read up on the subject, and he reads an inside book, which is a textbook on the subject that you could snip the pages out with scissors, paste them together, and have a textbook on UFOs. I wrote it this way so that the type of person who likes to read an adventure story rather than a fact book gets sort of the fact book slipped in, you might say, because the main character in the book reads the inside fact book and you read right along with him. So anyway, one of the things that I put into this book is, and by the way, the manuscript has been read by a lot of abductees over the years, and they agree that as they turn page to page in certain sections, one thing after another that they recognize comes into play, and one of them being the ambiguity of the subject. You're never quite sure. You think you know what happened, but you're not quite sure you know what happened.
Well, I got to ask you a personal question. Do you believe people actually are being abducted?
There's some reality to it. I have no physical evidence like some people claim that they've traveled through walls and stuff like that. The so-called Brooklyn Bridge abduction of Linda Napolitano, where she gets levitated out through the window of her 12th story or whatever it was, however high up she was in a apartment building, and she gets levitated right out through a window without opening the window. Now, how do you do that? Is that a real physical thing? It seemed to be. And the unique thing about this particular case was the fact that there were a couple of policemen and a high official of the World Organization. There were witnesses on the outside who saw her floating along in a beam, and they saw this big thing hovering up higher than her building and sort of sucking her up into it. It's a really bizarre story, the Brooklyn Bridge abduction case. But you get statements of what the people think happened. They seem to be sure, but in the case of Travis Walton, you have external witnesses also. Something definitely happened to him, but how did he get from where he got zapped over to where he woke up 10 miles away or wherever it was?
Days later, too.
Gone for a week or 5 days.
I don't know. I had one guess, and I kind of been using this term that he used. Yeah, maybe they're opening like mini portals into people's houses, and that's how they're transporting them out, from their house or cabin or out in the woods or their cars into, whatever they're being abducted to. and maybe they're creating a little mini portal. Have you ever thought about that?
Well, it's easy to say, but nobody knows how to do it. There are guesses that if you get enough mass per unit volume density, you might warp space, and that might create something like a portal. But it's so far beyond what we can do, at least that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of anybody who's ever vanished into a pinhole or whatever. I don't know how small a portal would be. But anyway, there's lots of speculation and a lot of not knowing what's going on. These Navy cases where it's reported the object goes at extremely high speed from one point to another. That was already known way back in 1947, within weeks after Kenneth Arnold's first sighting sort of alerted everybody that there was something going on. The Air Force collected data, and already by July of 1947 knew that these things, whatever they were able to zip from one place to another at extremely high speed so fast you could be looking at it and all of a sudden it would just like disappear. And they said the disappearance was like either high speed or just disintegration in place, whatever that would mean.
Interesting. You have a question, James?
Yeah. Hey, Bruce, wouldn't in theory, if you had the right vibration or the right frequencies, couldn't you on a quantum level be able to separate atoms enough to go through solid objects?
Well, remember, solid is really mostly space, because atoms are mostly space. At least that's our simple picture of an atom. So,
right,
but if you try to push one atom through another, I don't think you can do that. You'd have to have them go in the interstices, the spaces between atoms. If you have a solid structure, or if it's a liquid structure for that matter, the spacing of the atoms is about as close as they can get, without mashing one into another and causing problems. At any temperature above absolute zero, the atoms are vibrating around average positions, bumping into each other to some extent. The hotter they get, the more they bump into one another. Could you push one structure of atoms through another structure of atoms without breaking both structures? I doubt it, but I don't know. It's the type of thing you'd have to do an experiment almost on an atomic level. Some like pushing one salt crystal through another salt crystal, where you've got sodium chloride with sodiums and chlorides at the corners of a cube, and you push one cube through another cube.
Interesting.
I don't know. It's all just guesswork.
It is. Now, we're going to have to take a break, so don't hang up. So I'm going to put you on hold. We'll be back in about 3.5 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark with me, Gary, with our guest today, Bruce Maccabee. And he's been on the show several times. I'll tell you what, a wealth of knowledge in ufology. We'll be back in about 2.5 to 3 minutes. You're listening again to Night Dreams Talk Radio.
You thirst for some significance of the both dimensional kind. You enter a realm of spirit, of sight and sound and mind. Your radio is a cosmic doorway, and your psyche begins to spark. When you tune in to Gary Anderson and Night Dreams After Dark.